I'm well aware that this video is going to attract people who just want to leave an angry comment about how much they hate Fallout 76, why Bethesda is the worst company in the world, and so on. So we're going to start with a message to those people, as they don't tend to make it past the first minute. There's going to be a timestamp on screen right now. For anyone who's clicked on this video because of anger, I get it. You don't want to watch the video, and most of it you won't enjoy. The segment that takes place at this timestamp is something I genuinely believe you will enjoy though. So, while you take a minute to think of what comment you want to leave, skip ahead to that timestamp and at least get yourself a little enjoyment out of this whole process. Anyway, for the rest of you, hey! Welcome to the video! Today we're going to be talking about the never-ending hate train that Fallout 76 has. Ever since the game was first announced, there's been some very vocal people online who have dedicated a great deal of time and energy to making sure everyone knows just how much they dislike this video game. Now, disliking a video game is perfectly fine. Everyone has their own tastes and preferences, so everyone will find games that they don't click with, and even some that they get a negative feeling from playing. It's always a shame when this happens, as it would be great if every game was enjoyable for everyone, but there's enough titles out there that it normally shouldn't be that big a deal. For some though, this negative reaction towards a game seems to be more enjoyable for them than the game itself could ever have been. Constructing an effigy of all the bad things you perceive a product to contain, and then setting fire to said effigy with a group that thinks the same, can often prove to be a sadistically enjoyable experience. As the night goes on, the flames on the totem start to dwindle, and people will move away, looking for a different effigy to burn. Eventually the fire is extinguished, leaving only embers, and the few who remain gathered go their separate ways, having expended all that the flames could give them. This is the standard model for hatred towards a game. The fire rages briefly, but then people move on to something else. With Fallout 76, things are different. The game has created a fire which doesn't want to die out. There are times when it wanes, but those gathered around the effigy will try their best to breathe more life, reigniting the fire and drawing a larger crowd to stoke the flames. In real-world terms, this means that Fallout 76 has never stopped being hated. For the past 2 years, the latest entry in the Fallout franchise has kept up a strong following of those who not only aren't fans of the game, but go out of their way to spread hatred of the game wherever they go. To be clear, this isn't the same as having problems with the game. Criticism is important, and something we'll be touching on later. This is talking about the pure hatred of detesting the game so much that the mere existence of this entertainment product makes you angry. These die-hard haters typically come from a larger overall Fallout fanbase. They enjoyed some previous Fallout game and now believe the franchise to be at a low point. Their feelings may stem from dedicating themselves too heavily into a series that was outside of their control and seeing it take a different path that they never wanted it to go down. Change is difficult for people to deal with, and the Fallout franchise is one that changes far more than most game series out there. In a world with Call of Duty and FIFA, games that rarely change from entry to entry, the sequels of Fallout show us just how much you can stretch the world of the game. These vast changes help to keep things fresh and exciting, but can also leave behind the players who enjoyed the ways things were before. Not content with simply playing their own favourites from the series, they look to change the current games and future entries, maybe by modding the single player games to make them a better fit, or maybe by shouting at and insulting others online, because some of these people are also childish idiots. As much as I'd like to give a nuanced and balanced take on everyone that hates on 76, sometimes it can't be done. There are a lot of bad people out in the world, and plenty of them play video games, including the Fallout games. These people will take the hating to the next level, building up the effigy higher than ever before, making their own contributions stand out the most, and meaning that people from afar can only see the worst of it. This leads to a scenario where the game is being viewed in the worst light, as too are those that criticise it. It's often the case where the most extreme members of a group end up being used to represent it to those on the outside. What this leads to is everyone in that group appearing to be the worst of the worst, and it makes dealing with the group difficult, if not impossible. Fallout 76 has a lot of problems, I think we can all agree on that. So there are a lot of people who talk about these problems and criticise. This is a fair thing to do. Critiquing a product can help it to improve, something which the game is constantly doing. The problem is that these people who aren't trying to hate on the game can often be swept up alongside the hate train and make it seem as if their opinions align with the worst of a group. This removes any semblance of nuance, leading to videos titled like mine, where the problem appears very black and white, when in reality it's never quite that simple. If we want to derail the hate train, then we need to stop seeing it as a blur, and look at things more clearly. To do that, we need to examine the whole length of track that the train's been travelling on. This all began when Fallout 76 was first announced as an always online experience, a multiplayer game designed to focus more on playing with others than dealing with the NPC inhabitants of the post-apocalypse. This made plenty of gamers justifiably annoyed. After all, real people are the worst. Video game characters are much easier to deal with. For those that found this new game idea most offensive, they turned to the recurring phrase of "Bethesda has ruined the Fallout franchise." This is a phrase that has gained more and more popularity over the years. When the franchise first came to Bethesda and they turned it into a 3D experience, there was a vocal group that weren't a fan of the new format. When New Vegas started to gain a following, it was then decided that 3D Fallouts are great, but only if someone else is making them. Fallout 4 came out, and despite improving hugely on several fronts, it was claimed by many that it was the start of a downfall of the franchise, with even elements such as improved shooting mechanics being viewed as a negative point by some. With all this backlog of anti-Bethesda sentiment towards the Fallout franchise, when it came to 76 being announced, there was already a hate train in place, platform fully constructed, and just waiting for new tracks to be placed down. Bethesda could have announced the most perfect seeming game in existence, and there still would have been backlash towards it. What they did instead was announce a game that immediately brought up a lot of red flags for people. Plenty had concerns over an online Fallout, especially when it was announced that the only other humans in the game would be real people, not NPCs. This was more than enough to get some fueling up the hate train, where others of us got excited, made a video about how the game will be successful, and quit their retail job in order to make videos on it full time. When people started to get their hands on the game, more and more concerns came out. There were clearly going to be bugs to deal with, and the world was rumoured to be an empty landscape with nothing of value. Negative pre-release reviews set a clear precedent, and gave many their initial viewpoint of the game. First impressions matter, and Fallout 76 did not give a good first impression. Although it was more than possible to enjoy the game, it definitely wasn't a polished experience, and it, quite fairly, got reviewed poorly at launch. This is the point where most games would have the hate train start to slow down. Game bad, let's move on, that sort of thing. Where this story is different is the fact that Fallout 76 is a constantly evolving experience, a true model of games as a service. Over the course of nearly 2 years, we've had 22 major updates, giving us near monthly changes to the game, and keeping news on the game constant. A bad game can be left to die, but Bethesda was unwilling to do that. They clearly wanted more from their game and had plans in place to keep it going for years to come. This is great for those of us who enjoy playing it, as we keep getting new content to try out and features to explore. But it also means that the game keeps getting focused on, and unless an update fixes every single problem, that focus remains negative. The best updates and occurrences get the least coverage. When everything goes well, nobody cares. But when something comes in crashing and burning, all eyes turn to watch the devastation. From constant glitches to malevolent hackers, whenever something bad took place, there was a host of different places you could hear about it. Negativity gets the most attention, and modern media is looking for clicks. That's why I'm working on this video and still haven't made a Best of Fallout 76 series. I could make content about all the things I love in the game, but those videos don't perform well. Talking about the negative side of things will, and that just helps the hate train to keep moving along. When nobody is talking about the bad things anymore, the hate train loses steam and eventually grinds to a halt. But when the game keeps changing and has a long life cycle, it extends the track further and further, never giving an endpoint where the train will stop. There are only 2 ways to truly stop the hate train at this point. The first would be to have the game to improve to such a high degree that it has very few problems people can complain about. 99% of the bugs and glitches would need to go, impressive new content would need to be added, more player choices and options would need to be made viable, and overall the game would just need such a huge glow up that it's unrealistic to expect this anytime soon. Wastelanders did a lot of good for Fallout 76, addressing one of the biggest early concerns by adding in NPCs for the player to interact with. This did result in the hate train losing a little steam. Things had clearly improved and the game was better than it had ever been before. But it wasn't perfect. It still had plenty of bugs, balancing issues, and bad press behind it. Updates have kept coming, and the most recent ones have been a tad controversial, not really swaying things overall too much positive or negative. To achieve the first way of stopping the hate train, we need the updates to not receive such mixed views, but instead be overwhelmingly positive. Otherwise, we go to the second way for the hate to stop. The death of Fallout 76. If updates stop, the devs get relocated elsewhere, and the remaining player base drift away, then the game will die. If this happens, the hate train will stop. Not immediately, but soon. There will be a final burst of speed as those aboard the hate train view themselves victorious, before seeing that the tracks are no longer being constructed ahead of them. They've reached the final destination, and here the train must now stop. Normally this would be where I end a video like this, a depressing note that makes everyone feel worse and leads me to wonder why more people don't want to subscribe and see more of this heart-crushing content. But just because I'm depressed doesn't mean you should be too, so I decided to come up with an experimental third option to stop the hate train. Rather than let the hatred slowly fizzle out or come to its eventual stop, why not see if it can be stopped head on? What if Bethesda addressed the hate directly? No more of this, we've heard all your feedback, and we expected a bumpy ride talk. No, what this will take is a trailer so balls to the wall that I'm going to now give a language disclaimer. If you aren't a fan of swearing, might want to leave now. I generally keep my content PG, but there was no way I was doing this without taking it all the way. With that done, here is my magnum opus, a trailer to address all of the hatred that 76 has received, and maybe even stop that stupid fucking train once and for all. At Bethesda, we've made a lot of great games. We published Dishonored and Wolfenstein. We developed the entire Elder Scrolls series, including Skyrim. That's right, we made Skyrim, a fucking masterpiece that was so successful that you idiots wouldn't stop buying it. After making a game this bloody good, you'd think that we'd be cut some slack, but apparently not. Fallout 4 came out and you miserable wankers were all like, "It's the exact same gameplay as Skyrim. Finding another family member, that's the same story that Fallout 3 had." So guess what? We changed things up. We took your feedback and made a game that would be distinct from the previous few we developed. A Fallout game, set right after the bombs dropped, with no humans left alive on the surface, and the only other people to interact with being other players, because, oh yeah, we made it a game you could play with your friends. Turns out that was a mistake, because you miserable cunts apparently don't have any of those, and decided to review bomb our game just because your social skills are worth sod all. You lot may not be articulate enough to keep a conversation going, but that didn't stop you from harassing our employees at every chance you got. We could have stooped down to your level, but instead we took the high road. We spent the past 2 years filtering through the shit to find those who provide actual feedback, and we worked off that to try and constantly improve the game. We've created various factions of human NPCs, regularly added in new content to play, and even improved how the entire game looks, so that cinematics like these can be captured raw from it. And through all of this, we focused on the positive elements of the Fallout community. We've started giving spotlights to anyone who so much as smiles at us, because after the abuse we've endured from online virgins with nothing better to do than insult us, we think we've fucking earned it. And as for those of you who claim that we've ruined the Fallout franchise, did you see what the original creators were doing with it? Brotherhood of Steel was an unredeemable piece of trash, made by the original creators of Fallout. We swept in and saved the entire fucking franchise after that debacle, coming out with Fallout 3, the best rated Fallout game on Metacritic by the way. We then let Obsidian make New Vegas using our fancy new tools, and you motherfuckers use it to claim we're shit at making games. We gave them the fucking tools and let them have another try at the franchise. But apparently that was a mistake, because now you dipshits won't stop bitching about how you want New Vegas 2, and anything else is unacceptable. We want to make Fallout 76 a great game that everyone can enjoy, but that can only be done if you actually give us a chance. Accept the game for what it is, and either move on, or actually give it a proper try without constantly comparing it to other games. Learn to enjoy these products for what they are. Games designed to entertain you for a while, and maybe even whisk you away to a world that's somehow less fucked up than the one we currently live in. Use this online Fallout entry to try and make some friends online with others who also like the franchise. Give yourself a positive experience with the game, and stop being such a little bitch. So yeah, that was my Fallout trailer to the haters. Bethesda, if you want to use it, feel free, consider it a gift. As for everyone else watching, I truly hope you enjoyed that. There's a decent chance this video will be demonetized after all the swearing I just did, so please subscribe to the channel and watch some of the videos that actually make me money when people watch them. Leave a like on this video because, let's face it was fucking fantastic, and give it a share anytime you see someone getting pissy about the game. As always, thanks for watching. Sarge out.